Always a quick sound check. Let's give one moment. See who joins. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And I hope everybody's doing well. We had a great stream yesterday. A bunch of people. Like I said, my 1 a.m. streams are always doing better than my 1 p.m. streams. Clearly, my audience is like me, a bunch of night owls. So we need to do more stuff 1 p.m. All right, let's just give it a few moments. Let's see. We're good. Sound is good. Okay. We're going to switch this to public. We're going to publish this. And we're good. Okay, let's give it a few moments. Let's see who joins. And let's chat about Freemasonry. Yesterday, we talked about cults, the characteristics of cults, why Freemasonry is not a cult. And I realized there may be a lot of people, maybe you yourself, maybe someone you know, which is part of a group or an organization that is claiming to be Masonic, but is lying, is actually a cult or a cult-like organization. And I figured it's worth taking a few moments to talk about if you know anybody who's in a cult, or if you think you yourself might be part of one of these organizations that is pretending to be Masonic, but is actually a cult. You know, how to deal with that, resources, things like that. There's some really good ones out there, so I think it's worth exploring. Good resources, I should say. So let's wait a few moments. Please, as always, take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Oh, let me just plug this in quickly. If I could reach it. There we go. That's right. That's tomorrow. We're going to start with 63 push-ups. I don't know where I'm going to do them yet. I want to try to do them in a different space around Windsor, or different spaces around Windsor, just to celebrate this beautiful city. I've said it a million times. We as Freemasons should absolutely be cheerleaders for our towns, for our cities, for our communities. Um, and I think doing push-ups in front of like Caesars, the Underground Railway Memorial, the river. I think all that stuff could be really, really cool and really fun. That would be a good idea. I should do it in front of the Masonic Temple first. That would make a lot of sense. So long as the weather's not too crummy, maybe that is what I'll do. I just need to get a good stand so you guys can see me doing it. But in front of the temple would make a ton of sense. Um, I do hope, though, everybody's doing well. All right, let's give it a few moments. Let's see who joins. And then today we're going to talk about cults, more particularly how to talk to someone who is in a cult and how to maybe encourage them to leave. And also, if you yourself are in a cult or you believe you're in a cult, how to leave. The reason being, I realized yesterday when I was talking about characteristics of cults, what cults are, how they operate, there may be a lot of people who themselves are part of organizations that are in fact a cult or a cult-like organization, but that they believe to be Masonic, perhaps because they've been lied to, or the organization is using Masonic terms or symbols improperly, or without permission, or illegally, whatever term you want to use, or are pretending to be Masonic, but are in fact not. In those cases, I think it's worth talking about what to do in those situations. There's different resources. As always, though, the first advice I would always say is make sure that if you yourself are unsafe, or you know somebody you think is unsafe, you think they're being abused, I mean sexually or financially or physically or emotionally through the cult, call 911, seek legal counsel, seek legal support, know your rights. Especially if you think it's an emergency situation, call 911. Don't be afraid to. Sometimes this stuff can get very dangerous very quickly. And obviously, on an emotional level, as someone who's a proud Freemason, it does really bother me when I see groups and organizations pretending to be Masonic and using Masonic terms and terminology to end up hurting people. Hello, Karen. Oh, we got a HOA person in. All right. Nobody cosmic. I just have an awesome head. Please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Good morning, General. I mean, furtive. I mean, Judaism is not a cult. Judaism is, I guess, a religious belief. I'm not going to knock it. I mean, whether you're Jewish, Catholic, Christian, Hindu, Sikh, whatever your beliefs are, that's not what makes it a cult. We talked yesterday about what the characteristics of a cult, what makes a cult a cult. Judaism does not count. But good try nonetheless. Yeah, I believe it. And I mean, honestly, back in the day, I fell for some of those. I never, sent them money or anything like that, but I would post stuff on a Masonic page that was not Masonic necessarily. So that was always an issue to deal with. But you learn, you get better, hopefully, over time. What if I was cosmic idiot? Would it make a difference? All right, we're going to give it. Freemasonry is not political, Godric. We have Masons of many different political beliefs: left, right, center, I don't know, Republican, Democrat, Labor, Reform. Freemasonry is not political. In fact, you're not allowed to discuss politics while in lodge. You can discuss it outside of lodge, but you can't discuss it within lodge. So Freemasonry is not political. All right, let's give it a bit more time. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I am 2 subscribers away from 3,450 subs. By the way, also check out Dreamseeker's channel. Make sure to sub to him as well. He's doing a great job. All right, let's give it a bit more time. Let's see who joins. The first 60 minutes, I don't have any specific topics. I just hang out and chat about whatever. Or I guess whatever as related to Freemasonry. The second 60 minutes in, that's when I have my specific topics, such as in this case, talking to people or helping people who may be trapped in a cult or otherwise within a cult. But for now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you, Dreamseeker, and congrats to you as well. Keep up the great work. Freemasons do not hold power of any sort behind any curtains. To extent that Freemasons have power, I mean, there's power, I suppose, in networking. You join a Masonic lodge, you make new friends, meet new people. However, you can get that same networking ability and power through, for example, joining an organized sports team. It's not unique to Freemasonry by any means. Yes, I got a big nose. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Well, thank you, Lily. Although, to be fair, I'm not American. I'm Canadian, though I do love America. I always say Canada is the greatest country in the world because we have the greatest neighbors in the world. So that is my humble opinion on that one. Thank you, Shola. I'm just going to hang out and see who joins. As always, these 1 p.m. streams, I always tend to get less people. It's the 1 a.m. streams that really take off. My audience is like me, a bunch of night owls. Although in fairness, I do start these streams a little bit later than I should, so that is an issue as well. I always say 1 p.m. and then it's like 1:10 that I start. Tomorrow, February 5th, I'm starting the 2,000 push-up challenge. 2,000 push-ups in 23 days. Tomorrow is going to start with 63 push-ups. So that should be fun. I may actually try to do them, as was suggested, try to do them in front of the Windsor Masonic Temple for the first one. Yes, Godric, every state does have some sort of Freemasonry. 1 dozen eggs. I have 2 dozen eggs in my fridge, so how can I be weak when you're just 1 dozen eggs? Canada's a great country. I've said it before. Canada is, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world. I still believe that to be the case. I love it. But I think you have to be also willing and able to recognize and understand that just because I think Canada's the greatest country in the world, if you're from the States, you may believe the States is the greatest country in the world. If you're in England, you may believe England is the greatest country in the world. It's no different than having a it's no different than having a world's best dad t-shirt or world's best mug. I can buy one of those for my dad. That doesn't mean that other people don't think their dad is the best dad ever. Although my dad is, in fact, the best dad ever. By the way, I just found out today is World Cancer Day. Um, so my mom passed away from cancer. My dad has had cancer. Um, and so to anybody who is struggling with cancer, fighting it, or have family members who are fighting it, nothing but respect to you. Um, Nothing but respect to how hard it is and the work that you put in. So yeah, I know, at least I don't know what it's like to have cancer, thank heavens, knock on wood. But I've seen my friends and family have cancer and go through the challenges of it, and it's not easy. It's also not easy for those who support those with cancer, right? Caregivers and nurses and doctors. Nothing but respect to all of them as well. I'm sorry, Dream Seeker, that sucks. And yeah, it's one of those things where fingers crossed that research continues, research is funded, and we get some cures. It's interesting. The Masonic Foundation of Ontario has done a lot of excellent, excellent work when it comes to charitable giving as relates to cancer research. You can find it through the Masonic Foundation of Ontario um, support, cancer support, right? The Masonic Foundation of Ontario was established by the Grand Lodge of Ontario in 1964, which petitioned the Ontario government to establish a new organization to provide benevolence to the wider Ontario community, express goal of providing medical, educational, and community support efforts to deserving groups in the province of Ontario. That includes cancer research. I'm sorry about that. As you should miss her. Um, right. That is absolutely, incredibly, incredibly sad. So I'm very sorry about that. I miss my grandmother as well. I believe she actually had cancer, but she recovered from it. But she also had dementia. So, um, and that's kind of, I think, what she passed away from. Yeah, no. And I hope, I absolutely hope that I do know sometimes people who are Indigenous or Indigenous Canadians don't always have access to the same healthcare opportunities as other Canadians. So, I guess what I'd say is just try your best. If get regular physicals, talk to your doctor regularly. If you have any concerns, talk to your doctor. It is, it's one of those things where sometimes an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, we're just hanging out, waiting to see who joins. Again, this first hour, I don't have any specific topics. I just wait to see who joins. Um, and who wants to talk about Freemasonry. And then the second hour, after the first 60 minutes, I talk about my specific discussion. Again, in this case, leaving a cult, how to talk to somebody who's in a cult, all that good jazz. So let's give it a bit of time and let's see who joins. It does. It does. Um, I will say, I would never want to have cancer anytime, obviously. However, if I do have to get it, I'd rather get it in 2026 than any other time. I think that our medical research is coming along quite well. Fingers crossed, it keeps getting better, both in terms of palliative care. I know when my mom had cancer and she was passing away, I was grateful for all the doctors and nurses who, at first, it was about treatment, but then when they decided the treatment just wasn't going to work anymore, keeping her as comfortable and as supported as they could, um, so that she could pass away in relative peace and relative comfort. I'm sure it was very relative, but still, I was grateful for all the doctors and all the nurses and the staff at the care home she was at for those last few years, really last year and a bit of her life, to keep her healthy and not healthy, excuse me, but keep her comfortable and as well as she could be. Um, it is, and again, that's why I would never, once again, I would never, ever, ever want to have cancer. But I think medical advancements, and who knows, maybe in a few years, knock on wood, they'll find some cures, or they'll find a vaccine, or who knows. I mean, they already have treatments, and many people do recover after having cancer and go on to live full lives. But I think every year medical technology is getting better and better. So that's something to be grateful for. Well, welcome back, Elliot. But please, if you are going to be back, hit that like button. Consider doing a 99-cent super chat. That helps out big time on the channel. Um, we're going to give it a bit more time. Or as always, we're going to wait to see who hits the like button, who hits the subscribe button. No specific topics this right now for this first 60 minutes. Once we get 60 minutes in, we're going to talk about leaving a cult. Why? Because there are many groups and organizations, sometimes on social media, sometimes IRL in real life, sometimes having a presence in both places, which pretend to be Masonic, use Masonic terms, use Masonic symbols, however, are ultimately incredibly dangerous, and are pretending to be Masonic to lure people in, but are actually acting as cults. And so we're going to talk about why that is. Not so much why, we've already talked about that, but how to talk to somebody who is either in a cult or you think is in a cult, and how to support somebody, as well as if you find yourself in a cult or you believe you're in a cult, how to get help and get support. Obviously, the most important thing is if you believe you're at risk of any type of abuse, sexual, physical, financial, emotional, whatever it might be. If you think you're in danger, if you think there's an emergency, call 911, either for yourself or a friend, or seek legal counsel. No worries, Brother Courtney. I was late as well. I didn't start till like 10 after. I'm always late on these afternoon streams because there's always something I got to deal with, it seems like. But Brother Courtney, I hope you're doing well, and thank you for being here. We are just hanging out at the moment, waiting to see who joins. No specific topics, just kind of chatting. Again, the second hour is when we have more specific discussion points. Although I will say again, my 1 a.m. streams are always the more popular streams. They do, Jason. Those are the streams where I get the most people. I mean, trolls can be annoying. However, they also drive up views and drive up engagement. So it's a double-edged sword. As with most things in life, right? Most things in life are a double-edged sword. You got to take the good with the bad. I say 1 a.m. Eastern. Who knows? Maybe the trolls are in a different time zone and they're, it's midday for them or something. Who knows? We are, for now, they're going to hang out and just wait to see who joins. Please, as always, take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. By the way, I don't know if you guys have been noticing, you know me, I love scary movies. There are some pretty incredible there are incredible scary movies scheduled for release. We've got Scream 7, which is coming out. Let me double check the release date. Scream 7 is scheduled for release February 27th, so almost 3 weeks, just about 3 weeks. We've got The Strangers Part 3, Chapter 3, which is scheduled for release February 6th. I just saw the first 4 minutes. It looks really, really good. So I'm debating going to see it in theaters. So yeah, a lot of great scary movies coming out. I just don't like the root ones. Well, speaking of trolls, yes, we got Vance Pool. All right, fair enough. Human Freedom Index. I mean, I guess I'd need to know more, Lily, about what the Human Freedom Index actually rates, right? What is this index based on? What is its index measuring? I need to know more about that because, I mean, I've heard of that index before, but I don't actually know how it comes to its rankings or what criteria it uses. We mentioned the word troll and suddenly it's been manifested. Well, fair enough. What can you do? Like I said, they keep things interesting. That's for sure. And if you're going to be on YouTube, you got to accept the fact you're going to be dealing with trolls. As much as it may be annoying or whatever it is, just is what it is. So there you go. We're just going to hang out, give it a bit more time. Please take a moment. If you're just joining, hit the like and subscribe button. Like I said, we got this first 60 minutes. I don't have any specific topics. I just hang out and wait to see who wants to join and what you guys want to talk about. So let's wait and see. I did get actually a record number of views yesterday for one day, almost 4,000 within the 24-hour period. So that is awesome. It's online. They base it on 89 categories. All right, let me see if I can figure this out. Human happiness. I wonder if Freemasonry would be involved in that, like how if Freemasonry, would help maybe drive up some of these criterias. You might get more. If you have a city or a country that has a greater amount of civic institutions, including Freemasonry, if as a consequence you would have a greater amount of happiness pursuant to the index. I'm trying to figure out if I can find the actual criteria now. I'm trying to see if I can find the FAQ. Oh, here it is. How is the global ranking produced? It's based on the Cantril ladder. Is it the true? I did not know that SpongeBob was a Freemason or Squidward was a Freemason. I got to check in on that then. Yes, I will definitely talk about that. Well, some people say Nimrod was the first stonemason because he was the architect at the Tower of Babel, but they didn't use stones. They used mud with straw to create the bricks, but I guess they forged them. I don't know if you count that as, to me, stonemasonry, you need to actually use stones as opposed to like mud and straw. I'm glad you're doing good, Dad. I'm doing good as well. Love you. Thank you for being here. Interestingly enough, according to the World Happiness Report, when they say measuring happiness, less is more, reminds me of a quote I really like from, I believe, Seneca, who said, it's the person who craves more that is poor, not the person who has little. So that means is even if you're living a simple life with like a small house, if you're happy and you don't want more, then you're rich. If you're the world's richest man, but you're always desiring more money, more power, and you never have enough, then you're actually poor. I think there's a valid point there. Suli, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to figure out if I can get this report and see if Freemasonry might be involved with it at all. The pyramids, I mean, the Egyptians built the pyramids using a lot of slave labor and a lot of time and a lot of their resources. If I could figure out how they determine who is happy, I'd like to get the actual list of criteria. List of criteria used in World Happiness Report. Thank you, crisis actor. I appreciate that. Please take a moment. I hope that you'll hit the like button. I don't remember you from being on streams before, though you say you love my stuff, so maybe you have been. I just don't remember the term crisis actor or the name crisis actor. Well, so it depends who you ask. Lucifer, I think you're thinking of your friend and mine, Albert Pike. Albert Pike was he was a Christian. He was also a Luciferian, to my knowledge. Basically, he argued he viewed Lucifer and Satan as being different entities, right? Lucifer was the snake in the garden who gave, encouraged knowledge to humans. It wasn't the same as being the biblical Satan, who was the fallen angel. And actually, I'm not a theological expert. I'm not a theologian expert. When there is, to my knowledge, no evidence in the book of Genesis that actually refers to the snake in the garden as Satan or as the devil. That actually came later, that interpretation. So Lucifer was not a satanic entity according to Albert Pike. He was a light bringer, a morning star, right? So that is morals and dogma. Right. Freemasonry, however, is not a religion. It does not worship, encourage, or even acknowledge Lucifer or Satan. Despite what people say, people always bring up, for example, the 33rd degree. I always point out, A, it's wrong when people say that. B, even if it wasn't wrong, it doesn't matter. That is one degree within the whole context of what Freemasonry is, right? You can't use any single degree to judge Freemasonry. If you were going to, you should use the first 3 degrees. Entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. However, morals and dogma and Albert Pike is where people get that from. It is incorrect. That's where a lot of it comes from, yes. Thank you, Brother Courtney. It is. I mean, it primarily comes again from Albert Pike and from morals and dogma. And again, it's a misunderstanding. But again, I even always bring this up. Look, I'm not a huge fan of Albert Pike. I've said this before. I don't dislike him probably as much as it sometimes come across because I just get annoyed with people constantly bringing him up. But he was one individual. What he wrote was his philosophy about Freemasonry and on Freemasonry. It is not reflective of Freemasonry as a whole. Certainly, it's not reflective of the vast majority of people's Masonic experiences. So you need to keep that in mind as well. First of all, Mr. Keeps, this coffee is wonderful, okay? I will never knock Caesar's Windsor for their delicious, delicious coffee. There's also, by the way, Leo Taxil with his Masonic hoaxes as well. So we don't have any nemesises. Honestly, Sewell, the biggest nemesis that we have in Freemasonry is how comfortable your couch is. Or how comfortable, what's on the television at the time, or social media. It's anything that keeps you from coming to a Masonic lodge because you're more comfortable being at home, right? And that's not a nemesis. That's every civic organization is struggling with this, right? Every um, civic organization and civic group is dealing with this and is dealing with these issues. Oh yeah, thank you, Dream Seeker. Me as well. See, Dream Seeker gets it. Dream Seeker gets it. He knows what he's talking about. Then get out of the house, Joshua. Don't, I do think people need to get out of the house more. People need to be willing to, I think, one of the things Freemasonry does encourage, and that's a very healthy thing, is people getting out of the house, being part of the world, being part of their communities. I think isolation can be incredibly, incredibly dangerous for a lot of people. Isolation has been shown to be, a consequence of, the consequence of all sorts of health issues, all sorts of, I remember reading the report is from the Surgeon General of the States. Being lonely can be as damaging to one's health as smoking, drinking, any other bad habits one has. By the way, I did also want to mention this is not a political stream. However, I can speak about my personal political kind of history. I was honored in 2009 to be an intern in the office of the Prime Minister. It was Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I was grateful and honored to be an intern there. I think he was a really good Prime Minister. He recently had his portrait, his official portrait, unveiled in the House of Commons. He actually did a sit down with John Chrétien, like the two of them were interviewed together. It was a really good and it was a really cool moment. I think he deserves kind of a lot of the flowers that he's been getting lately. So it's a cool little moment to note. Shriners and Masons are not the same thing, but every Shriner is a Mason. So if you are a Mason first, then you can become a Shriner. So Shrine is an independent body within Freemasonry. They're an independent body that focuses a lot on things like charity, social aspects, social engagement, all that good jazz. They actively foster and promote ways to expand the fellowship. That's a good way to think of the independent bodies in general. Again, it's not a higher degree, it's not a lower degree, it's an expansive degree. It's expanding your fellowship, more opportunities. So the Shrine does a lot of excellent, excellent work. Nothing but respect for the Shrine. Absolutely. We are still just hanging out, waiting to see who else wants to join. Oh, so the World Happiness Report uses 6 key variables. Let's see what they are. Oh, it doesn't say here. Maybe I can get the actual list. Can't find it. I'm going to check that out, and maybe I'm going to see if it's possible for Freemasonry to increase the happiness of a country based on that index and how it would. Hello, Soviet British Union. Please hit like and subscribe. I hope everybody is doing well. As always, take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I hope everybody's having a great, great day. And yeah, don't forget tomorrow, 10 a.m., the first in a 23 days of 2,000 push-ups. 2,000 push-ups in 23 days. Tomorrow, I've got 63. I will be streaming starting at 10 a.m. If you want to do the push-ups with me, I hope you will do so. If you don't want to do the push-ups, you can do squats. You can do modified push-ups. Heck, you can do, 63 steps. Or while I'm doing the push-ups, you can do some sit-ups, whatever you can do. Talk to your doctor if you have any concerns. Sons of the Widow, I will check it out. Let's see how they're doing in terms of, Sons of the Widow. I don't see the podcast. If I can find it, I'll let you know. I don't see anything right now, but it's awesome. There's a ton of great podcasts out there about Freemasonry. So, more power to them, that's for sure. Nothing but respect. I have handsome blood in me. That's all that matters. There you go. That counts. You can do 63 steps or 63 meters if the treadmill can measure in meters. Whatever works best, right? Whatever works best for you, whatever you can do. Um, who is a Mason? I have no idea what that means, Suli. I mean, I've known many Masons. I spend pretty much all my time with the Masonic Temple, so I know many Masons kind of spend most of my time around Freemasons by and large, just because it's my profession and my vocation. It is both. We're just hanging out to see what questions we got, what comments. Again, we're 36 minutes in, so once we get to the 60-minute mark, we will be talking about cults once again. We should, Will Vinzen, we should. Honestly, I'm surprised that we don't, as Masons, have more, use more Mason jars when we're having events as like centerpieces or to drink out of. There's some good synergy there. At least you would think there's some good synergy there. Yes, Dream Seeker, hit that like button. A celebrity or figure you didn't think would be I don't know. I mean, nothing shocks me in terms of who is or who isn't a Mason because they come from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities, all different races, all different political beliefs. So I don't think I've ever been surprised. I mean, I thought it was really, really cool when I learned that Brad Paisley was a Freemason. I thought that was really awesome. My hope is one day I'll get him to visit the Windsor Masonic Temple. I think that'd be really, really cool. I think that'd be awesome, in fact. So yeah. I hope that maybe one day Brad Paisley will come and visit the Windsor Masonic Temple. To his credit, he does a ton of great work for charity, a ton of great work for veterans. He has the store in Nashville. Nothing but respect for Brad Paisley and for all of the work that he does. I think he's done an incredible job. I mean, I guess Shaquille O'Neal, but again, it doesn't really surprise me. There's no reason why Shaquille O'Neal would not be a Freemason, that's for sure. He was actually made a Mason on site as well, which is kind of a cool little note to make. One of the few people to be made a Mason on site. I suppose I was most surprised when I found out that Joe Biden was made a Mason on site by Prince Hall, South Carolina. Now, whether you think Prince Hall can make a Mason on site is where you think any Masonic body organization can make a Mason on site. That's one of those questions that I guess people have to be able to answer for themselves. I think it is possible. I think it's fair. So I'm not one who knocks it, but that's just me. Brad Paisley, yeah, I mean, he's done a pretty incredible job with charity, with supporting brothers around the world, with supporting veterans, with supporting those who are struggling, who don't have a lot of income. In Nashville, again, the store is a community-run grocery store. He just does a really great job. So nothing but respect for him. I mean, I don't know I suppose if there was, how would you know about it, right? And if it's impossible to join, how would it continue to grow? I don't think I think every organization, it just has different rules and requirements. I suppose an organization that has a really high like income requirement. So let's say like a club that has, $10,000, $20,000 in yearly membership fees, that would absolutely be probably a very, challenging club to get into just because your income needs to be so high. I'm sure there's clubs that are invitation only. I mean, I don't know, or invitation exclusive, but one of those challenges in life, right? The more difficult it is to join to join a club organization. On the one hand, that can create a level of exclusivity and a level of interest, which can actually drive up interest. The harder something is to join, the more people tend to want to join it, I have found. But on the other hand, and by the same token, you run into the opposite problem is if it's too hard to join, you lose membership over time. It's a tough balance. Um, well, there you go. Mr. Keeps can give you the speech. I mean, again, I've said this before. I've known many Catholic Freemasons. How much of the Catholic statements on Freemasonry are actually quote unquote enforced, I don't know. It's one thing for, a pope to say something or for the Catholic Church to say something. How much of it is being actually observed is a different story. Again, though, I always recommend going back to Pope Leo the 13th and Humanum Genus, which was written, I think it was written in 1888, 1885, around there, where he gave a bunch of different reasons, but the three main ones were, at least for Leo the 13th, the fact that Freemasonry is democratic in origin and implies that authority is granted through individuals and the consent of individuals, whereas within the Catholic Church, authority is divinely granted. It goes from God to the Catholic or the church leadership or religious leadership, which again, there was this idea of if something is democratic, then it misunderstands from whence authority derives. There was also this concern that because Freemasonry welcomed men of all different faiths together and did not place any one particular faith above any other particular faith, that was denigrating to Catholicism. If you had a Catholic join and the Catholic is being told that every faith is equal and equally possible, or equal under the eyes of, not necessarily equally possible, but equal under the eyes of Masonic leadership, like, the Muslim faith will be treated equally to the Catholic faith, treated equally to Protestants, whatever it is. That was concerning to them as well because they felt that was denigrating to the Catholic faith, or to Catholics at least. There was this misunderstanding. Again, it goes to the Leo Taxil hoax of what Freemasonry is and how it operates. But a lot of Catholics believed in the Leo Taxil hoaxes, which did not help anything. And I do believe there was some concern amongst Catholics that more people were joining Freemasonry than joining the Catholic Church. And that was concerning to them because it meant their numbers were dropping. That's at least my opinion, my explanation. Mr. Keeps may have some different ideas, which is perfectly fine as well. Mr. Keeps is a good dude, so, if he wants to throw anything in there as well, he's more than welcome to. Yes, we are. I have not watched David Scherter. I'm busy. I mean, it does hope very much. I'm not York right. Unfortunately, that is the case, Soviet, but hey, I've got no knock. I'm not going to knock the Catholic Church. Nothing but respect for them. Nothing but respect for anybody's religion and anybody's faith. Um, well, the relativistic, again, I think when you say relativistic, you're referring to the idea that we within Freemasonry are welcoming of men of all different faiths. We don't put any one faith above any other or any one belief above any other. Um, it's not secret, it's private, and it's not anti-Catholic. Um, and even the private is not completely private. There are many, again, I'm here talking about it right now. So how secret slash private can it be? Um, Hardly soft taco. I hope you'll take a moment to hit the like button and the subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it. I don't know if you've already subscribed, but I feel like I remember the name Hardly Soft Taco, and I do not. So, um, well, that's a degree within Freemasonry. Again, what if you're York right? What if you're Scottish right? Or sorry, what if you're York right? What if you're a Shriner? What if you remain within I don't want to say remain in a negative sense, but are a Blue Lodge Mason or a Craft Lodge Mason? What if you're Eastern Star? What if you're part of the youth groups? I don't speak specifically about Masonic rituals. I neither confirm nor deny. But what I will say is, one of the great misunderstandings about Freemasonry is this idea that like that 33rd degree, 32nd degree Albert Pike, that Scottish Rite is somehow a high degree or higher degree in Freemasonry. The highest degree in Freemasonry is the third degree. Those are the degrees without which Freemasonry would not exist. Um, well, we do take obligations. However, the idea of supporting a Masonic brother or protection, if you want to use that term, that first of all, that does not include any criminal acts or any immoral acts. So if I found out, for example, that a brother was either going to kill somebody or let's say did kill somebody, that brother could not use his oath to stop me from going to, or my oath, to stop me from going to the authorities and advising them either that a crime is about to happen or did happen. We are not meant to protect brethren who are committing any type of criminal acts or any type of immoral acts for that matter. That would be grounds for Masonic suspension. That's one of the big misunderstandings. There's no blood oaths. I don't know what a blood oath even means, right? But nobody's mixing blood or anything like that. I've never seen anything in a Masonic ritual that I would consider to be unsanitary, and I would consider a blood oath to be unsanitary or dangerous or unhealthy. And yeah, so it's one of the great misunderstandings of Freemasonry. Sure, certainly, if I know a brother is in distress, I will do my best to support and help that brother. But in doing so, I'm also reminded to support and help those who are not my Masonic brothers, because we are all ultimately brothers of the dust. We are all, to use a biblical metaphor, sons of Adam. And Freemasonry reminds me of that, by first reminding me that my brothers within Freemasonry come from all different walks of life, all different religions, all different backgrounds. I am then able to remember that my Masonic brothers also come from, that I have brothers outside of Freemasonry as well, that my neighbors are my brothers as much as my Masonic brothers. If any of that makes any sense. What was my biggest, that's a great question, Brother Courtney. My biggest misconception, honestly, my biggest misconception about Freemasonry before joining is actually exactly the same as the biggest misconception I had about professional wrestling before I started training, is how much work it takes to actually administer and run a lodge. Before I started training for professional wrestling, I knew that professional wrestlers worked hard. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it was a lot of work. However, I think in my mind, I imagined that, before a WWE Raw or a WWE like event, Vince McMahon or now Triple H would just stroll into the arena, stroll into the stadium, snap their fingers, and suddenly you have a professional wrestling ring, and you have all the chairs and all the production and all the lights and all the sound. It just kind of appears, out of the ether. I mean, I obviously knew literally people were doing the work, but figuratively, I kind of didn't realize how much work goes into it. And when I actually joined professional wrestling school and actually saw the behind the scenes stuff, I learned just how much work and how hard it is and how much effort goes into actually setting up a ring, tearing down a ring, moving it to the next town, setting up the chairs, setting up the commentary, the lighting rigs, how expensive the lighting rigs are, how expensive it is to just do a fair show for like 50 people, never mind, hundreds of thousands of people in the stadium and millions of people watching. Freemasonry is the same thing. I never knew how much work goes into actually setting up a lodge, tearing down a lodge, keeping a Masonic building clean, keeping Masonic buildings safe. The secretary's work, organizing the secretary's work, the financial work, getting financial statements, collecting dues, creating dues cards, all the different things that you organize and all the different things that you have to organize. It is really, really a ton of work. And there's so much more to Freemasonry than the esoteric rituals. That's honestly a very small part of what it means to actually be a Freemason. If you're not there vacuuming up the carpeting after a meeting, you don't truly understand Freemasonry and what it is. Um, the nicest comment on my channel? No worries. Hello, Freemason KWR. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I mean, Freemasonry taught me a lot. Sorry, professional wrestling school taught me a lot of really valuable things. It taught me, for example, amongst other things, the necessity and the value of knowing why you're doing something. It's not enough to just be able to do cool moves, quote unquote, cool moves. You have to know why you're doing it and why it's important. And that's something that I learned through professional wrestling school as well. I think Freemasonry is much the same way. I have tar on my lower bracket. I don't know what that means. Like my teeth? Well, I did my best. I have no idea what that means. My favorite type of food, I mean, well, I don't think I do. My teeth look fine to me. And if they're not, well, too bad. Um, Thank you, Delarius. Oh, my teeth are fine. What? Hello, I'm not gonna put you in timeout with that name. Um, what's my favorite type of food based on culture? I mean, I love seafood. So any culture that has seafood, Mediterranean, I guess. I guess it'd be Mediterranean because I love very, very much, any type of seafood. That's my favorite. I love raw oysters. So Mediterranean. Actually, I love Mediterranean diet in general. I love what's it called? I love um, like antipasto. I love like anytime you're in a restaurant and they bring out like the antipasto with like the marinated mushrooms, the roasted red peppers, the olives, the capers, cheese, meats. That is my last meal, amongst other things, would absolutely be a would absolutely be like a huge antipasto tray filled with meats, cheeses, olives, mushrooms, red peppers, followed by raw oysters and a seafood platter. That'd be and a seafood salad. Those would be without a doubt my favorite type of food. I love that stuff. I've never, but I would love to because I love crab. Seafood, again, without a doubt, is my most favorite type of food. I am a Freemason, Cal Proctor. I'm a worshipful master of a lodge. I'm also third degree master Mason. So, yes, I am a Freemason. By the way, altitude investing. Everybody, if you get a chance, go subscribe to High Altitude Investing's channel. He's doing a great job. He's growing his channel a lot. At least it looks like it. I'm seeing a lot of his stuff on stream on YouTube, so it strikes me as he's doing a great job. I hope that you will keep up the good work. Um, okay, I mean, are you at the application stage? Are you at the application process? How far you come into your channel or your sorry, not your channel, your application process? And I wish you best of luck in your Masonic journey. I will have to try SC crabs. South Carolina? I'm a past master. That is awesome. I've unfortunately never had the chance to visit South Carolina or any Masons in South Carolina, but I'd really love to. I think it'd be really, really fun and really, really cool. It seems like an excellent state and something I'd love to visit if I could. Well, after the stream, no, thinking about applying. That's awesome if you're thinking about applying. I mean, don't rush it. Take your time. You will absolutely. um, you will absolutely um, join if and when you're ready. Don't rush the process, though. A lot of people feel like they have to do something right away. In my experience, when it comes to Freemasonry, when it comes to anything, um, it's best to take your time. Freemasonry's been around for 300 years, over 300 years, almost 400 in point of fact. It'll be around for a couple more. Having said that, I absolutely wish you the best of luck in your Masonic journey. And yeah, nothing. And honestly, you don't even have to apply to approach the lodge and express your interest. Give yourself a bit of time. I would love to. When do you guys meet, if you don't mind me asking, Dale? Honestly, the weather is holding me back as well. Don't worry. It is freezing cold and miserable outside. So it's getting better though. It's finally a nice day, in fairness. It's finally a nice day. So I got outside for a bit and that was really nice. I'm just hanging out a little bit longer. Um, Hope that you'll take a moment to hit the like button and the subscribe button. And thank you all for being here. We are going to wait another 5 minutes. We're going to start talking about people joining a cult, or more particularly, if you know somebody who's joined a cult, or if you might be part of one yourself, steps you can take to keep yourself and keep your friends safe. I've talked about this before, but yesterday I talked about why Freemasonry is not a cult. However, unfortunately, very, very often what we find is um, cults, groups, organizations will use Masonic terms, use Masonic symbols, use Masonic whatever it is to trick people into thinking they're a Masonic group or organization. And then after they're done tricking people, to take their money, to hurt them, whatever it is, or they will hurt them, right? First of all, as a Freemason, that definitely makes me angry. I don't want anybody using Masonic symbols or Masonic ideas to cause others harm or to hurt other people. But also, and within that context, I think it's worth talking to people about what to do if you know somebody who you think is part of a cult. Yes, the usual suspects, Hunter. We get a lot of snow in Winnipeg. Dad can tell you that as well. Um, who is the usual suspects for the record? But Hunter, thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button if you get the chance. We are at 3,450 subs. I mean, I think working at home, I did work at a Home Depot, or actually, I worked at a Home Hardware. I don't think there's anything wrong with working at a Home Depot. Um, I mean, sure, it's a great job. I think, so long as the job that you have is able to pay you enough to support you, it, whatever your life is, so long as you don't live beyond your means, then working at Home Depot would be a great job. Nothing but respect to people who I worked at a Home Hardware for many years in Ottawa on the Home Hardware, Capital Home Hardware, which is the Ottawa on the Glebe, in the Glebe. It was really, really fun. I miss those times. Awesome. Yeah, bogus masonry is a real problem. Again, I have no issue with people starting their own group, starting their own organization. And if they want to borrow Masonic symbols, I mean, so be it. We borrowed symbols from other groups as well. I do think, though, the issue, without question, and the danger, without question, is to what extent um, we are, are those groups using terms about Freemasonry, using Masonic terms to scam people, to steal their money, to abuse them in other ways. That's where the danger comes in. If you want to start your own group and call it, John's Masonic group, and go out to the bar with your buddies and hang out and watch football, More power to you. So long as you're being honest about what you are and what you're not. That's the danger. There is not truth. That's a myth. It comes from your friend and mine, Albert Pike. And also, there is no higher levels of Freemasonry. That's the other thing to keep in mind, right? There is no higher level. The highest level of Freemasonry, or the highest level within Freemasonry, is the third degree, the Master Mason degree. So you need to keep that in mind. It's very important to understand that. We're just going to hang out though, wait to see who else joins. Please, again, take a moment to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for being here. I hope you're all having an excellent, excellent day. Okay, I guess we're going to start. We're 1 hour in. So like I said, yesterday I talked about cults. And more specifically, I talked about the reasons that Freemasonry is not a cult. However, it got me thinking, it is absolutely the case that there are groups and organizations that may use Masonic terms, Masonic symbols, kind of Masonic ideas or identity, that, to pretend to be Masonic, to lure people in, and then as a cult will, to lure people in and then use them or abuse them, use them financially, abuse them in other ways. And that's a real danger. And even if they're not using Masonic symbols, you may just happen to know somebody who is trapped or otherwise involved in a cult. Or it may be possible that somebody watching this is involved in a cult, realizes they're involved in a cult, but is nervous or afraid about leaving. And I wanted to make sure that I provided some resources on how to deal with both of those situations. The former, how to help people trapped in a cult, and the latter, what to do if you yourself are in a cult. As always, though, if you are ever scared for your safety or you're being abused, definitely, call 911, especially if you are in a really dangerous or emergency situation, or if you know somebody and you think they're being harmed or going to be hurt. Call 911. Also, don't be afraid to seek legal advice and seek legal counsel. A lawyer may help you know your rights, especially if the cult has been abusing you or maybe financially abusing you, and you want to see about getting some of the money back or even suing for damages, emotional, physical, or otherwise. A lawyer is the best person to advise you. The key points, though, if you know somebody who you believe is trapped or involved in a cult, being patient and respectful, learning about the techniques, working to establish a relationship, and connecting with friends or family of the person. Here it is. This is what I want to use. It's called To Think Again, Escaping, Understanding, Recovering Cultic and Controlling Relationships and Groups. Talking to and dealing with cult members, guidance for family and friends. The following information is intended for a quick reference guide. You know your friend and family best, so be cautious applying any general advice you read and adapt this appropriately to the situation and temperament of the person you're communicating with. Always seek the advice of emergency services if you suspect there's a serious crime being committed or somebody is at risk of, I would not just say serious harm, but any harm, right? It can be very distressing to see somebody entangled in a cult group. The first thing to do is research cult psychology and their group in order to understand, or in order to develop an understanding of the following elements. This will help you make sense of the behavior that you're seeing. It can be very confusing and very difficult to see somebody especially if especially if there's somebody who's usually very smart, level-headed, and intelligent, joining a cult, making foolish decisions, giving all their money to a cult, giving up control to the cult, especially again if you view them as being usually very level-headed, smart, intelligent. And they may be very level-headed, smart, and intelligent people, but they may have certain weaknesses, psychological weaknesses, emotional weaknesses that this cult or this group has been able to exploit. It doesn't mean if they're part of a cult, it doesn't automatically mean they're stupid or they're dumb or they're foolish, it means they've been exploited. And unfortunately, almost anybody, I would actually say anybody or everybody, probably has some type of weakness that is exploitable. So that goes to the first idea of avoiding judgment. Just because you see somebody making bad decisions, joining a cult, it doesn't mean, again, that you get to necessarily judge them for being foolish or being stupid. They may just have been exploited. There may be some weak element of them, psychological challenge that they're facing that the cult has managed to exploit. And honestly, almost anybody or everybody is at risk of being exploited. So don't judge them because you could be in the same boat one day. It also may be they've reached a point where they actually do recognize what's happening to them. They do want to leave, but leaving puts them at risk. They may have been threatened with physical violence. They may have been threatened with blackmail. They may have been threatened financially. So you never know. It may be a case of they're in just so deep that leaving puts them at risk of some type of harm, financial or worse. It may also be the case that they're experiencing sunken ship or sunken boat fallacy, which is something that a lot of cults and a lot of groups rely upon, right? You see it a lot also in abusive relationships. There's this idea of, you see it with gambling addiction as well, right? I'll use gambling as an example. If you lose $50 in gambling, you can get this idea of, well, I've already lost $50, so what's the harm of gambling with $50 more? You'd gamble with another $50, now you've lost 100. Now you get this idea of, well, I've lost 100, so I might as well keep going and maybe I'll, win it back. You then lose 200. Now you're thinking, shit, I needed that money for groceries, but I've already $200 lost. What's the big deal if I lose another 100? You keep going, you keep going. Now you've lost $1,000. It's like, what's the big deal if I gamble another 100? I've already lost 1,000. And it just keeps going and going, right? Cults can work on the same way. You've already spent, you've already given the cult leader and the cult group $5,000. Are you going to really leave now? Why not stick around? Otherwise, you've lost that $5,000. You might as well stick around and give them another $5,000, and maybe you'll get whatever the cult is promising. Or you've put up with abuse and disrespect and control from the cult for 6 months. Why not stick it out for another 7 months? Why not another 8 months? Why not another 12 months, right? I saw that with abusive relationships a lot when I worked in jail. This idea of, a woman, or it could be a man as well, is getting abused by her partner. If I leave, or if the person leaves, it's like, well, I've left, so that was all for nothing, the abuse I took. However, if I stick around and I can somehow salvage this relationship and I can change the abusive partner, it will all have been worth it. And the abuse just ramps up and ramps up. And as the abuse ramps up and ramps up, they start to feel like, well, I've dedicated more and more and more. I've, had to eat these costs of being abused more and more and more, but it makes it harder to leave because it's like, if I leave now, everything I went through was for nothing. If I stick it out and I change them, then that was just a cost associated with getting to this good relationship. However, that's not how it works, right? The more you lose, it's not a cost that you can recover by sticking in the situation. I don't know any current occultists personally. I mean, I would say in some ways, honestly, the Epstein Island stuff seems like it operated in a cult fashion. Hello, Flame. Um, um, well, my views are definitely more in the US than in Canada, although I get a lot of views in Canada as well. Dad, you're not quite right. You're not quite correct, Dad. There is usually 2 Grand Lodges in every state. Quote unquote regular, I don't like that term. I'm going to call it AF and AM Freemasonry and Prince Hall Freemasonry. And most Grand Lodges recognize both. So there you go. So that is why so again, my first advice is, don't judge people. It can be hard because I've known people involved in cults, or at least cult-like behaviors. It can be hard not to judge them. However, it doesn't mean they're stupid. It doesn't mean they're dumb. What it means is either A, they are being, they have some type of psychological or emotional weakness that has been exploited. And but for the grace of God, any one of us could be exploited in the same way. Or it could be that they recognize they're in a bad situation, but feel like they cannot leave because they're being threatened financially, physically, who knows? The cult could have their kids or could know where their kids live. They could be afraid of their kids being harmed, right? Or it could be that they've spent so much money or so much time or so much effort or had so many costs put upon them as part of this cult already. They feel as though, to leave now would be to waste whatever they've invested into it, which is, you see that with gambling and abusive relationships and cults. I hope that made sense so far, right? You may find, however, even with all of the above, there are times when the cult member is open to discuss the group. During these time, planting seeds and gently pointing out where reality isn't matching the teachings or hypocrisy within the group may be helpful to them. The goal isn't to win, which is something I sometimes struggle with. It's to help the cult member reflect on the group and activate critical thinking in a safe interaction. Often the most effective ways to approach these conversations is with empathy, honesty, gentleness and concern, patience, and a non-judgmental attitude. You are trying to create an emotionally and psychologically safe connection, so you become the go-to person when they have concerns about the group and need somebody to talk to. If you cannot be the go-to person, that's okay. What you need to do is figure out who the go-to person should be or could be and connect them together. Do you have a parent who's concerned about you? Do you have a friend? Are they more often available? If you are, for example, somebody who's working, like let's say shift work, really odd hours, really odd schedule times, like let's say you think the person is getting ready to leave the cult. They're not quite at the stage yet where they're ready to leave the cult, but they seem to be moving in that direction. But you, let's say, are constantly traveling for your job. You may not be the best go-to person. Because if they call you and say, I need to leave, and you're in the Philippines for work or something, you might not be the best go-to person. Part of your job in that case as a friend is to figure out who the best go-to person is and contact them and see if you can get those two together. A lot of things, as I'm talking about this, talking to a person who's going through a crisis because they're involved in a cult is very similar to the psychological first aid training I took. I'm Masonic, whether I'm homosexual or not is irrelevant. Freemasonry welcomes men of all different sexual orientations, gay or straight. But when you're talking to them, try to keep in consistent contact with the member via email or telephone, even if there is little response, even if there is no response. What you could do is just send a text message to them saying, hey, I'm here, I'm thinking about you, let's grab a coffee sometime. And even if they don't respond, send the text every couple weeks. You're trying your best. You're not always going to win or succeed. That's okay. Express sincere and unconditional love for the member. Doesn't have to be love, just respect, kindness. Be empathetic, non-judgmental, and kind. Keep a diary of comments, attitudes, and events associated with their life in the cult. Keep all evidence. I talked before about the nature of contacting an authority figure, contacting the police, whatever it is, if you have concerns, writing down what it is that made you be concerned, what it is that the person said that made you concerned is incredibly valuable. Because if you call the police come upon a crime in place, arrest people, you may be called to testify, as you should be. Having writing down the comment, the observation, whatever it is that made you concerned is incredibly valuable. Keep a record of anything you need to keep a record of. Again, if you're called to testify, heaven forbid. But it could happen, right? As much as you're able, bite your tongue if the cult member is making unkind comments. So if you tell somebody, I think you're in danger, I think you're part of a cult, and that person responds by calling you a name or saying you're stupid or an idiot or whatever it is, try not to respond in anger. It can be hard, but one of the things a cult will do is cause you to lash out, cause the person as a member to lash out against those who, challenge the cult. It's an us versus them type of thing, right? And cults are very good at creating an us versus them dynamic, especially against those who actually call out the cult on their nonsense. Seek help from organizations specializing in counter cult work. That includes police. If you are able, discuss escape routes. Know where the local shelters are, especially if, for example, it's a cult that is abusing or taking advantage of women. Know where the shelters are so the women can go there. Know whom they can call, the number for taxis, Uber, whatever it might be. Connect with other people, gather allies. Try, and this is probably really, really hard, try to accept that there may come a point where there's not much else you can do. And there has been people in my life, unfortunately, who have got involved in at least an online cult or online scams, lost a ton of money with those scams. And I reached a point where I just had to accept the fact that there was nothing I could do. I pointed out what was going on or what I observed and the hypocrisy of it. I tried to be non-judgmental. I tried to give them resources, and they wanted to keep on being involved in the scam. So be it, right? You have to accept that whether it's a Masonic brother, a friend, a family member, there's only so much that you can do. Thank you, Brother Courtney. Try not to avoid rushing and giving them solutions before they're ready. If they say, I'm not part of a cult, and you immediately respond with, you are, and the solution is go to this shelter, they might push you away. Know the resources, know what's available, but let them, but don't force them into anything. Don't try to force them. Don't be judgmental. Just talk to them, right? Avoid phrases like you're in a cult, you're brainwashed. They'll just respond in anger. Just ask them questions. Avoid giving money to the member, especially if they ask. If they're being financially exploited, giving that person money, all it does is gives money to the cult, right? If you are given any documents from the cult or about the cult, like let's say your friend is trying to recruit you and gives you documents, keep the documents, make copies, show them to authorities if you have to. Heck, even show them to Freemasons. Like, for example, if you have a cult that is using Masonic symbolism or Masonic terms in recruiting material and you get a copy of it, make copies of it, keep the original for yourself, but give copies to the authorities and give copies to the police, to the local Masonic lodge that's legitimate. Hey, just so you know, people are using Masonic terms to recruit people. Here's the documentation. Here's the documents related to that. Just so the Masons know what's going on. Avoid becoming angry or hostile towards a cult member, antagonizing them or ridiculing them, which is something I've struggled with in the past when somebody is part of a cult or part of a scam and they told me about it. It's very hard for me not to ridicule how foolish they're being because it annoys me. However, you have to try because it's just going to push them away. Try not to isolate yourself, get support. The cult member may also be isolated, within the cult. You don't need to isolate yourself as well. Find support. Find people who can help you. Don't underestimate how malicious or powerful the cult can be, right? For example, I mentioned before, some people may realize that they are part of a cult, but may be afraid to leave because either they may perceive, or it may be an actual fact, that the cult leader has a certain amount of control over them. They may be threatening them physically, they may be threatening them sexually, they may be threatening them financially, they may be threatening them emotionally, they may be threatening their kids. Heck, it could even be that the person in the cult is an immigrant and they're threatening them with, immigration status stuff to call the authorities. Who knows, right? But the point is, they may be afraid to leave. It may also be the case that the cult leader has threatened other people within the life. So, for example, if you're a friend of somebody in a cult and you are encouraging that person to leave or to reconsider or to question the cult, the leader may end up targeting yourself or you, or telling that person, if you leave, we will hurt your friend. So always make sure to know the authorities to call if you feel unsafe and why you feel unsafe, and record any examples of not just the member feeling unsafe, but you feeling unsafe. Try not to neglect yourself. It can be an all-consuming process trying to get somebody to recognize you're in a cult. If you are not focusing on keeping yourself safe and healthy as well, again, they have to, the people have to make the decisions for themselves. You can't force people to make decisions for them. I can't force Jim Lotus to be smart enough to understand the earth is round. If he's going to be dumb enough to believe the earth is flat, so be it. That's me being judgmental, which I just told you not to be. But this is YouTube. It's a separate situation. I also can't get Goonz to realize he's a dumb person. Unfortunately, he has to come to that conclusion himself. It just is one of those things where you have to kind of accept the fact that people are going to be dumb. People are stupid. Maybe he'll come to a better place in life. You hope he will. I would suggest if you are one of their friends, either Jim Lotus or Goonz, I hope that you will talk to them in a non-judgmental way about the foolish decisions and behaviors they are making. So that's my advice to you if you know somebody who you believe is involved in a cult, or just an organization that's harming them, or for that matter, almost any type of abusive relationship. Because I would say at its core, what a cult is an example of an abusive relationship more than anything else. Yes, it will, Brother Courtney, and I cannot wait for February 27th. The other thing I'm going to talk about is if you believe that you are part of a cult, how to leave. If you've come to the conclusion and you recognize that you are part of a cult, how do you leave, or how do you try to leave the cult, right? Not even how do you try, how do you just leave, right? You need to, and again, most important, contact authorities, contact emergency services, contact a lawyer about your legal rights as well. Understand your situation, decide when to leave, create or seek a landing pad, leave, recover, and rebuild, and live. There is no single foolproof method to leave a cult. You have to figure out how to leave it, what's best for you. So again, professional help, emergency services is the most important. So the first question you need to ask is, am I in a cult? In the end, the answer to that question doesn't matter. When I say it doesn't matter, what I mean is you don't want to get caught up in super technical definitions. Because you may say, well, I'm not part of a cult because it's not spiritual teachings, or I'm not part of a cult because it's not one single thing. What matters the most is, is this group or organization harming you? If it is, it's bad and you need to leave, period. End of discussion, right? Whether the harm be financial, physical, emotional, sexual, or any other way. That doesn't mean, if the group, requires sacrifices of time, of effort, like Freemasonry, I sacrifice a lot for it, but that's because I love it. I'm not being forced into it, and I wouldn't call myself being harmed by it, right? That's the difference. A lot of cults and groups will say things like, we're not harming you, we're asking you for sacrifice. That's not how it works. It's harm if it's being forced. Or again, if it's any type of financial, sexual, physical, emotional harm, right? Um, yes, out of the 16 viewers who was in the cult, hopefully nobody. It may take you months, it may take you years to recognize you're in a cult. One of the things I would say, I've talked about this before, from somebody on the outside looking in, if somebody is part of a cult, it can be very easy to judge them. Same thing with any abusive relationship. To judge them, why don't you leave? Don't you recognize how harmful this is? Don't you recognize how harmful, the ideas are, what it's doing to you? You need to remember not to judge them. By the same token, you need to remember to be easy on yourself a little bit, right? Maybe you're part of a cult and for the first few years you don't realize it, only to then, let's say a few years in, you finally realize what you're involved in and you see what you've been involved in. It's okay to maybe be a little bit judgmental of yourself in the sense that try to recognize how you fell into this cult, what happened, so you don't make those mistakes again. But also, you need to forgive yourself and you need to recognize and understand these cults, these groups are very good at exploiting people. They're very good at exploiting weaknesses. They have a lot of power and resources at their disposal. Um, and understand and recognize that millions of people every day fall into some version of an abusive relationship, some version of a cult, and to forgive yourself for maybe not realizing what you were involved with at first, for not realizing what was happening. If, heaven forbid, the cult convinced you to engage in illegal activities, then maybe you have to go to the police, admit what you did, and accept there might be some punishment for that. But then work to make yourself better and work to try to, pay your debt to society and forgive yourself because we all have weaknesses that can be exploited, unfortunately. Um, just because a cult may have got to you doesn't mean that others doesn't it doesn't make you any dumber or whatever than anybody else. It just means bad things happened. Again, maybe you need to go to the authorities, admit, you've been involved in this. If the cult got you to do things to harm others or bring others in, maybe, you need to accept the fact that there may be some legal consequences for that. That's okay. At least you're doing what you can to make amends for it, which is all you can do. I don't think Christianity is a cult. Christianity is a religion. I think people can, in the same way, Collins, people can use Freemasonry to, like, people can use terms and symbols and statements and ideas from Freemasonry to create non-Masonic cults that pretend to be Masonic. I definitely think it's possible for people to take Christian themes and symbols and ideas and create non-Christian groups that are cults. I think that's absolutely the case. Um, right? So again, I don't think Christianity is a cult. It's a religion. And again, what Mr. Keeps say is there are Christian cults. I'm using the air quotes because they're not actually Christian. They pretend to be. Um, right? Um, the word cult is often seen in a negative light, and those who leave cults hold an eternal fear that they are somehow lesser than friends or family who weren't involved. Um, right? Cult involvement is not a shameful thing. Your involvement does not make you less of a person, stupid, or unforgivable. There are numerous ways that individuals join a coercive group, including being born into and raised in the group. Again, if you're a kid, you're born into the cult, like, forgive yourself for any mistakes you may have made along the way. You were born into it. It's not your fault to be born into something. Which, by the way, one of the biggest reasons that Freemasonry is not a cult is because you cannot be born into it. To be a Freemason, you have to join of your own free will and accord. Being born into it right there is an example of why it's not a cult. It's about free will, right? You may join a group because you think it's shared interests. They don't realize what it actually is. They get you saying, oh, we have these interests. it provided you a sense of purpose and fulfillment, which is an example of exploiting something, right? You were feeling unfulfilled, you were feeling a lack of purpose. The cult exploited that, which almost anybody can. Um, they maybe this cult or group states its mission in these glowing terms, in these worthy terms. It says we want to save children, like QAnon. We want to save children is a worthy mission. However, just because it says it's got a worthy mission doesn't actually mean that's what it's doing or that's its purpose. It gave you a sense of growth, which then, once again, allowed you to be exploited and allowed a weakness because maybe you weren't feeling like you were growing. Lack of awareness, of course, of practices. You don't understand what these practices are. You don't understand things like sunken boat fallacies. One of the biggest things I've noticed with certain scams and cults is they'll start off by asking you for, a little bit of money, but they'll keep on asking you. So it's like, give me $25 for this thing. You give them $25, and then a week later, can you just give me $10 more? Well, you already give me $25. Why not another five? See, I've always heard it called the sunken ship fallacy or the sunken boat fallacy, but sunken cost is the same thing, right? Sunken cost is the same thing because it's 4 90-degree angles, Dad. There you go. Um, so, but sunken cost, and again, sunken cost doesn't just mean financial, it means time. You already spent, and again, the abusive relationship example, you spent 3 years with an abusive partner. So if I leave the relationship, then it's, well, at that point, now you're going like, I've spent 3 years in an abusive relationship. I can't leave. Otherwise, the cost of those 3 years was for nothing. I should just stick it out and try to change them. Hello, Gooey. Although, Gooey, I'm not a big fan of you calling me master either. I mean, that's better because I'm a master mason. But just call me Cameron. You're not a mason to my knowledge. So I'm definitely not the worshipful master for your lodge. Right, whatever the reason for involvement, most cult members think about leaving or try to leave or successfully leave at some point. Right, whatever you are in your personal beliefs, it's important to know that you are not alone. Involvement in coercive groups has no bearings on an individual's intelligence, self-worth, abilities, or potential. It's just a matter of you made a mistake. And people can make mistakes for a variety of different ways. I've made a million mistakes. I'll make a million more. Forgive yourself. That's important. Former cult members share many similarities on the path to recovery. The more you can find these support groups, the better your chances are of understanding. Heck, it might even be a case of you really want to be a Freemason, you always want to be a Freemason, and you just happen to join a group that was not Masonic but pretended to be. If you don't have access to resources like this stream and this chat, how can you know? It's probably not possible to join before this season. It takes time, Kasra. It takes time. But it's definitely possible to start the process before this season, which is attend the lodge and express your interest in joining. Now, you can't attend a meeting if you're not a Mason, but you can visit the Masonic Lodge, the Masonic building, express your interest in joining, and go from there. Right? A significant barrier faced to many cult members looking for an exit is community. The nature of many cults is to create a pattern of in-group and out-group thinking among cult members. It's one of many mind control techniques, that allows the controlling group to operate. I can talk. The core idea is that people in the group can be trusted to have your best interests at heart. Those outside the group are framed as untrustworthy due to their lack of understanding. Hatred of the group or jealousy over a lack of in-group status, the result in a significant hurdle that ex-cult members often grapple with. Leaving a cult means leaving your support system. It's just like leaving an abusive relationship, right? The partner may be your support system financially, emotionally, or otherwise. Leaving can be very hard. So you need to find other support systems. Find a local shelter. there are both men's and women's shelters, which you may need to go to, especially if you're in a situation where you're living with the cult, or you're all living in like some type of communal living, for example. May need to crash on a friend's couch, a family's couch, whatever it might be. Um, Understanding that leaving is difficult, your desire to leave is brave, and you should be credited for that desire. Um, Decide the best time to leave, right? Um, Leaving immediately may not be the best option if there are any type of threats to your safety, physical or otherwise. If, for example, the cult is keeping your cell phone or your identification locked away somewhere, um, right? The biggest question is, do you have access to what you will need? Do you have access to your own finances? Do you have access to a phone? Do you have access to your identification? If you don't, when can you get access to those things? Are you able to support yourself financially or your dependents when you leave? Um, right? Let's say hypothetically you are part of a cult or part of a group with your wife and your child. If you leave immediately, is that going to put your wife and your child at risk for anything? Will you be able to see them again? Um, if your partner does not wish to leave and you cannot get sole custody of the child, right? You have to think about things like child support, alimony, visitation rights. Every cult member and ex-cult member has a different circumstance, right? Don't get caught up in a set of particulars. What you need to consider is how your decision will affect yourself and those around you, and find the safest, best time to leave. Um, I would suggest, if you can, and if the cult is requiring you or keeping copies of your identification, is keeping your identification, is keeping your phone, keeping these items. If you ever get them back, you're not leaving yet, but you have those items in your possession, get photocopies. Give those photocopies to a friend. Give those photocopies to somebody who can hold on to them so you know you have the information. Write down phone numbers you will need. So if you have to, you can find somebody else's phone or a um, um, payphone. I know they're not around as much anymore, but they still exist. You know, it's interesting because when people are thinking of leaving a cult, there are two psychological states they may be in. PIMO, physically in, mentally out. That's when they've decided internally, psychologically, they are no longer comfortable being in the cult, but physically they're afraid to leave, or they can't leave for a variety of reasons. Maybe again, logistically they can't leave. The cult is in the middle of nowhere. They have no transportation. They have no financial support. The cult has items they need. Heck, the cult could be keeping their medications. Who knows, right? Whatever course or means they're using. But the point is, mentally, they recognize they're in a bad situation and want to leave, but physically, they cannot leave. Or FOMO, fear of missing out. That's another example of sunken boat or sunken ship fallacy. They've spent so much time in this cult, in this group, and it's always been bad so far, but they've been promised it will get better, and they're afraid if they leave, they will miss out on whatever good thing is coming, right? Um, right. So basically, if it's the former, there's going through the motions, looking for a good time to leave. Again, from a psychological first aid perspective, if you're talking to someone who's going through the crisis event of wanting to leave a cult, it's not really a crisis event, it's an emergency in the sense of they want to leave a cult, but they physically cannot due to logistical, coercive, or other threats. Do you know the resources in your community to help them? Do you know, for example, where the shelters are, where the food banks are, lawyers that can help them deal with any legal repercussions of leaving, like they want to sue the cult to get their, money back or for pain and suffering? The police services. Do you have a phone that you can give them to call 911, right? Do you know the number for a taxi? Whatever it might be in those cases. Well, I got ugly teeth, Please hit like. I think my teeth look fine. Mr. Keeps, how do my how does my how do my how does my face look? I think my face looks okay, or my teeth looks okay. It's also important to note that leaving a group is traumatic for many cult survivors. So you need to keep. Thank you, Mr. Keeps. I just got a big gap in my front teeth. Create and seek a landing pad. Understand that the timing and tone of your departure are important. The next crucial step is to decide where you will go upon exiting the group. Once again, it's difficult to pin down an exact formula that works for all ex members. Some are able to leave quickly, reconnect with old friends, maintain employment, and pursue recovery. Others require careful planning, legal consultation, stressful consultations, or even medical intervention. Whatever your situation is, it's still a good idea to move forward with as much information as possible. There are some key elements that you'll want in place in almost every situation, so focus on those. Safe, secure shelter for eating, sleeping, and socializing, a source of food, water, and necessary medication, the ability to seek, gain, or maintain employment. And there you go. I hope that all that stuff makes sense. Let me know if it does or if it doesn't. And the most important thing is once you leave, be safe, don't do anything illegal. Um, if you're in a coercive group, cult, and have decided to leave, you have to evaluate your situation and decide that now is a safe, appropriate time to leave. You understand that leaving may involve sacrifice. It may be harder to leave than stay. You have a safe, secure place to go. You have access to basic necessities. If you're good on the above items, you're as ready to leave as you'll ever be. When you leave, don't take anything that isn't yours or cause harm to anything you leave behind. Don't do anything illegal that could be used against you, but keep yourself safe. Obviously, if you feel threatened, you have the right to self-defense, but know what that means and just try to be as safe as you can be. Contacting local emergency services about your circumstances. Document everything, especially if you're leaving a hostile situation, and then recover and rebuild. Maybe a actual legitimate Masonic lodge may be one reason to rebuild and recover. Understand that you may have been engaged and had to deal with things such as spiritual abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse. You may have been forced into criminal activities, drug use, or forced labor. Again, go to the police. If you were forced into criminal activities, go to the police and explain what happened. And you may have to deal with the consequences of that legally. If you have a lawyer or get a lawyer, you can explain how you were forced into those situations, the coercive tactics that were used, and explain that to the court and the police as well. Repair what you can and move on. If you can't repair it, you can't repair it, right? That's something you need to keep in mind also. And rediscover of the self. It's hard work. So give yourself credit for the hard work. Give yourself credit, but understand it's difficult, and you should be really proud of the work that you put in. For a second. Freemasonry, I mean, it's a tool that's not the purpose of it, but it is absolutely the case that you can build business connections and find work opportunities through Freemasonry. There's no doubt about that. That is the case. So yeah, absolutely. But again, that's no different than if you join a football club or a football team, right? You can find the same you can find the same work and the same benefits through that as well. It's just as you meet more people, as you know more people, yeah, a big part of that is you're going to develop more connections. So you just need to keep that in mind as well. it's not the main purpose, but it can definitely be of benefit. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to be ending this stream now because I have some work to do. It's been a couple hours. I will be back on tonight at 1 a.m. And then tomorrow, 10 a.m., starting the push-up challenge. 2,000 push-ups in one, 2,000 push-ups in one, 2,000 push-ups in 23 days. Every Freemason needs to decide that for himself, Craig. That's another reason why Freemasonry is not a cult, right? Cults will say there is actually one reason to be a Freemason, and that's it. That is not the case with Freemasonry. Every Freemason decides his or her own purpose within the craft. If you want to give a very general statement, you could say it's to enjoy one another's company. I would say, though, the purpose of Freemasonry is to try to build a better world through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. But that's my purpose, not everybody else's purpose. Keep that in mind. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you all soon.